How is everybody? Do you guys still have some energy? Hey, oh, I hear some energy. Very cool, very cool. Cool, love the energy. I hope you guys really enjoyed not just the talk on 437, but also like all the answers. Sometimes like they're very long answers, but I think we should take the recording afterwards, create like a script and kind of like break down all the great content that Vitalik is always bringing to us. Okay, let's get it started. Let's get a quick round of intro. Dorothy, let's start with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dorothy. I'm Chief Growth Officer at AltLayer. I run BizDev, marketing, growth strategy, and everything at AltLayer. We're a infra project. We help projects to scale. We offer rollup as a service, ABS as a service, and also something unique called restate rollup, which we invented with our proprietary technology to decentralize sequences and validators with support from EigenLayer network. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Roberto RJ. I'm one of the co-founders of Aligned. We are a new infrastructure on Ethereum, also based on top of EigenLayer. And our purpose is verifying zero-knowledge proofs for cheap and very fast. So we receive the proof of various projects, we verify them in our network, and then we post the results back on Ethereum.
Hello everyone, I'm Micheal from Brevis. So Brevis is a ZK coprocessor that enables smart contract to access on-chain historical data. So put it simply, it is actually a scaling solution that allows you to move a lot of data heavy and extremely complex computation from on-chain environment to off-chain, and then generate the ZK proof so that the computation result can be used in your smart contract directly in a trust-free way. So yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Lukas. I'm with Safe. Safe is the largest open source ecosystem for account abstraction with over $60 billion of assets secured through Safe smart accounts today. We think the big potential of DeFi, but also the space in general, is getting unlocked only if we move collectively towards smart accounts as a default means to interact with crypto. I guess you heard Vitalik, who's one of our biggest KOLs, speak why this is important. I think we're not that far away. Over the next 1-2 years, I think you will see a lot of innovation happening around Safe and smart contract wallets in general.
Sounds good. How many developers do we have still in the room so we can fine-tune the questions? Okay, a couple of those. Okay, don't be shy, raise your hand. Okay, cool. Let's start with you, like Lukas, a little bit, because before we're jumping into interoperability, and obviously, this panel is all about kind of like developers and builders, especially around developer toolings. What are the things that, or what are the pain points that developer has today around tooling, and especially around abstraction tooling? What are the things that you're seeing right now that are happening? Under 1 minute, please.
There's a lot. The first thing even to think about as developers, am I going to be an application? Am I going to be an application on an L1, on L2? Am I going to be my own app rollup? If my own app-specific rollup, going to be posting my data on Celestia, on Ethereum, using EigenDA, whatever. There's so many questions to start with. But then once you actually decided what you are, then you need to go down how you're actually going to implement that, how you're going to reach your users, and then you will find out that there's a bunch of fragmentation in the ecosystem around where users are. Do they have hardware wallets, software wallets, EOAs, smart contract wallets? So there's a lot that has to be considered just to get started. But projects like Wallet Connect and others obviously make it easier by creating wrappers, by creating SDKs to abstract that complexity away. And that's also just generally how I think about the space where we are in it for open innovation and kind of creating permissionless systems where new developers can build new parts to a stack, but then there's usually this phase of abstraction that's needed in order to make this accessible to users in the end.
Makes sense. And feel free always to add or build on top, right?
Yes. Wanted to add something, and I agree with what Lukas said. From our point of view, as a user, not only as a project offering something for developers, one of the things we're noticing a lot is it's missing something or packaging many of these tools like INDA or Celestia in simple stuff, so developers can just simply use whatever they want and run it locally, and then actually being able to deploy it. So from us, that has been actually one of the pain points of developing what we're doing, and it's something we're taking into account, and we're trying to fix that with the tech stack we offer. So in our case, it's for CK, so especially in CK, there's a lot of work to be done regarding tooling and actually developer UX, because everything is fragmented and there are not standard solutions yet. So I believe part of our job is also working together and finding ways to offer simple tooling that that is also agnostic and doesn't vendor lock in anyone.
Well, yeah, just to build on top of RJ, so like, in the realm of, there's this like new category of things called off-chain verifiable computing. So the idea of off-chain verifiable computing is quite simple. So it's like you have blockchain, you can do all sorts of like computation on blockchain already. But there are certain kind of things that is just fundamentally hard to do on blockchain, right? So like because fundamentally even your layer 2, the blockchain is rooted in the lower the underlying consensus protocol, and therefore it is a repeated computing and it is a repeated storage state replication. So the cost is always going to be there. So the idea of off-chain verifiable computing is that if we want to do something very complex, we can actually offload that computation away from blockchain to an off-chain environment. Because in the off-chain environment, you have much lower unit cost, and therefore you can do the computation there, and then migrate the computation back to the computation result back to the blockchain with certain kind of a proof, right? So this is like applies to not just us, but generally like risk zero, succinct, all these different kind of ZK VMs stack to do this type of things. So this kind of trend and movement actually happened in the past in Web 2 as well. In Web 2, we moved from this kind of a synchronized-based web server, where one web server handles everything, to this kind of asynchronous-based approach, where you have one web server, but this web server is just coordinating and sending requests to a bunch of specialized backend, and these backend will reply result back to the coordinator point, and then send the result as assemble and send the final result back to the user. Right, so in the future we see the blockchain also as this kind of a coordination layer. But the challenge here that we see is that even though we already have a lot of these kind of off-chain verifiable solution platforms, how to actually integrate them, how to actually use them in the smart contract, in the application, that entire flow is sort of missing. Right, so like how do you provide one layer of abstraction that can actually simplify the development process, so that developers themselves don't actually need to think about, oh, I'm sending some computation off chain and get something back, but there just still feels like sending kind of a function call to a smart contract. That level of developer experience is something that is still missing in the entire industry while we move towards this new architecture. So yeah.
Do you think we have enough or good experience around interoperability around different ecosystem? Raise your hand if you think we have good experience right now. See? Yeah. Good.
Who's actually a builder or developer in here? Who thinks the developer experience is great in Ethereum? Like, the question is also if we want, from a developer experience perspective, if you want a plurality, as in, like you got like a bunch of different ways to pay masters, for example, in an account abstraction landscape, where you can go with Alchemy, you can go with Pimlico, and like having this plurality is great. Or like a Rainbow kit versus a Wallet Connect, like everywhere, pretty much everything you need as a developer, you have a bunch of different choice. Or is it better that we just have like one, let's say Coinbase, have like everything you need out of one box, and like it's all streamlined across? It's kind of this philosophy between, do we want like an Apple ecosystem, or do we want an Android ecosystem for developers? Curious if people have thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it will. I think it depends on the type of tools. So for things like wallets, or when you're building a full ecosystem like Base, I think it makes sense from their point of view. They want to offer the best developer experience. They take care of everything, kind of like Apple, right? But if we're talking maybe about critical infrastructure, I believe the more options we offer to developers under the same abstraction, the better. Especially if it's technology that is very immature or new, where we don't know yet which is the best solution. With wallets, we have a lot of experience. Maybe with other tech, it's still very early on. So the more options we offer developers, it's not also the best for them, maybe in pricing or in general experience, but also maybe the safest one.
I like that you're doing the moderation now. Sorry. So I will answer the question. Finally, I can answer a question. I think two things. It's about simplicity, right? And then one thing that I'm looking more and more is about personalizing customer journey, especially around layer 2. I mean, on our wallet side, I think personalized journey is one of the big part that we are very keen to also like kind of push more, like within this permissionless innovation ecosystem, within all snaps, so kind of like feature adapted to the user kind of like needs, right? So I definitely like believe in a future that people will start to have customized wallet. And I think also it's funny on the layer 2 side is I try to pay for the DevCon tickets and I wanted to pay on-chain on a layer 2 and it was super hard. Actually, like there was some problem with the open source ticketing system that we're using. Now it's solved, but was a little bit of pain. And for me, like normal users was also like having kind of different problems. So we need definitely an abstraction layer on top of that. One thing I want to ask is that do you agree about this kind of like on-chain versus off-chain kind of like trade-offs, or you think everything needs to be like on-chain, or what you will put off-chain on that side?
Yeah, so I think you can actually put a lot of things off-chain as long as you can actually verify that back on-chain. So right, so like as long as you can encapsulate the entire off-chain computation process in a verifiable form, and there are many different ways to do this. ZK is one way to do this. It offers you the ultimate security, but you want to have like a different trade-off point, you can use TE as well to actually generate certain kind of a certification or trust level for the computation resources, and you put that back to the blockchain. So as long as there's this cycle of security and assurance, then I think that's a worth, very much like well worthy kind of a trade-off to make.
Yeah, I agree with Michael that a lot of the times we like things that are on-chain, but on-chain also means less efficiency and also less privacy in a lot of ways. You're actually exposing your behaviors on-chain, and a lot of the times what users really want is actually security and immutability. Those are the real merits of having the blockchain and having decentralized technology. That's why I believe as long as we have the node operation online, we have all the decentralized node network on-chain for everyone to verify and for everyone to participate in a decentralized way, then it doesn't really matter how the orders are executed, how the data are transacted. Actually, in reality, rollups are execution off-chain. Like a rollup or moving all the transactions off Ethereum to a black box. So now we can enjoy lower transaction fees and higher throughput. So rollup is the off-chain solution to scale Ethereum, and we kind of have sort of achieved our goal. And now we need to further decentralize the sequencer and validator network to ensure the security and reliability part is also ensured. So we have passed stage 0, and now we're at stage 1, where we want to get rid of the training wheel and to make sure we can have all the node operators to participate in running sequences and validators for all rollups. And that's kind of what we're doing at AltLayer with our Restate rollup solution.
Yeah, actually, this is a good point, and I want to bring back the same question I asked around to Vitalik before about his tweet, right? He was mentioning about, I plan only to publicly mentioning stage 1 plus layer 2s, right? And the question that I have right now is that what is your expectation in terms of like first in 6 months, what you would like to see around other kind of like layer 2s adopting, or like what are the low-hanging fruit also like features that you would like to see them adopting, not just because in relation to this tweet, but in general, like this is also a security concern.
Yeah, I think as a rollup ecosystem builder, we are dealing with all the rollup projects on a daily basis, and we know Optimism is working very hard to push push their fraud-proof system across. It has been under development and under refinement. It's not fully deployed yet. And hopefully in the next 6 months, we can see kind of the first edition of it coming live. With fraud-proof system, then we can call it a real roll-up. Of course, Arbitrum is promoting their stylus, which is supporting various VMs. They kind of want to allow builders with different skill set who understand different codes to be able to build on top of Arbitrum. So besides Solidity, now builders who understand other programming languages can also build with Stylus to build their own Arbitrum orbit chain. So I think it would be interesting to see whether Stylus would get adopted. Personally, I feel like this is a very powerful engine, and I personally favor more diversified programming language over just using Solidity. But so far, it's very hard to promote Stylus. I don't see people talk about it on Twitter at all. So that's another thing we're monitoring. We have already supported Stylus and launched the first testnet of it. We were keen to see whether more builders would be able to adopt it. And then I think ZK Sync is also building their own ZK Sync networks. And if you notice, Schor might be also doing something along the line. So in the ZK world, there will also be more roll-up stacks that come out. So far, it's fair to say optimistic rollups are taking the lead. So in the next 6 months, it will be interesting to see whether ZK rollups can get real adoption. I'm talking about mainnet ready, real user ready mainnet stage. I think right now they're still beta testnet phase. They're not ready, but in the next 6 months, hopefully we can see all these roll-up stacks, including Polygon CDK, to actually go live and be usable.
Actually curious, is Linnea type 1 already?
We're working on that, yes.
So hopefully next 6 months, otherwise Vitalik will not mention it.
That will be fun. But one thing to say is also, like, I think user adoption is also one part of the game. That's why people are deploying on layer 2s. And right now, I really see the true use case, like, consumer-facing products kind of like being taken over. But other like use case that you think like, people should start building more around the audience that you think they will get picked up more?
Yeah, I agree with everything regarding rollups. In Align, we believe CK is already here. So one of the things we're noticing is probably the tech stack is going to get simplified. Meaning maybe in the near future, we'll just see people run an execution client written in Rust, and you just prove it and verify it. I think that will help with the adoption of more mature solutions for rollups, where the simpler it is to check everything's working correctly and easier to catch bugs. Now, we believe there will be many applications or use cases where developers will not build rollups in itself, but they will code new applications written in Rust, like normal servers in Web 2, and that is going to just get it verified directly on Ethereum. This is something unexplored. Maybe the closest thing we have seen is something called StarkX, that Starware developed first. And we're really excited to see more those things in those lines. Like, what will happen if you can just run a normal server and verify it on Ethereum? And you just do the accounting and the asset management on Ethereum or any other rollup. I think that's going to be really interesting. And for that, we need better tooling so people can explore more.
Yeah, I mean, like, I completely agree with what RG mentioned, because, like, I do think, ZK and off-chain verifiable computing in general is going to fundamentally change how user adoption works, like in many of the dApps. Let me give you guys a very, very concrete example, right? So, like, let's say for every centralized exchanges you guys use, Binance, Coinbase, whatever, they all have this very, very simple feature, but very powerful feature called VIP-based, VIP trading volume-based fee discount. It's like kind of a VIP program. If you trade a lot this month, next month you got a trading fee discount. This helps to construct a much more efficient market structure. And also much better user experience for like every user, because like the pricing generally will be much better if there is this kind of a market maker rebate and a fee discount. But if you look at every DEX, like Uniswap, PancakeSwap, QuickSwap, everyone, none of them has this feature. Well, why is that? Well, it's actually because the smart contract today have very, very limited capability to compute and access historical data. So this type of thing exists in Web 2 for years, for tens of years, that like you can personalize and customize user experience based on their historical activity and the historical usage of the application. But this type of thing is just not possible if you're just using smart contract platform today, be that layer 2 or layer 1. So the reason, underlying reason, I won't go into too much detail here, is that computing this type of proof or access historical data through, let's say, a block header is very, very expensive on layer 1, layer 2 directly. So this is where you can offload this type of computation in an off-chain environment in ZK and generate a proof for that. And then to essentially say, OK, I can generate a proof showing that this particular user indeed traded $3 million in the last month, and post that back to the smart contract. So the smart contract record that, and then in the future, things like Uniswap v4 hook is a very interesting example where you can actually have this plug-in to dynamically change the swapping fee on the fly. So this type of hook can actually store different user trading volume and customize and personalize their user experience when they swap and when they actually use the DeFi application. So this type of off-chain kind of a verifiable computing solution, we believe will actually fundamentally change how user experience is built and designed in the entire dApps industry.
I want to add that I think one of the use cases I'm bullish on is DeFi. I know DeFi server was long ago, and in between there was like NFT buzz, there was metaverse, there were GameFi. There were a lot of trends that came and go, but eventually I feel like DeFi is here to stay. And with the recent dynamic change in the centralized exchange field, you can definitely see basically all the exchanges getting consolidated. There's only one major player left standing, and then the rest of the players have minimal liquidity. This is killing the crypto industry in a lot of ways, because if you only have one arena that's dominating, then it will be a lot harder for small businesses to thrive, and it will be a lot harder for liquidity to flow. And that's where I think DeFi, decentralized exchanges, will start to rise up again. And with all the recent technical developments in the infra space, with Brevis, with EigenLayer, with ROS, it's actually, I think, it's a very good time for DeFi projects to start exploring very high-performance trading engines and very high-performance, also great user experience that could actually outperform the centralized exchanges. I think we're seeing Poly Market coming up, Pandos being a clear winner for the past year. So I do think DeFi is coming back.
So similar to client diversity, so how we can promote like layer 2 diversity? Like that's one question, and the other thing is that we need to have standards and framework. It's kind of like the EF of layer 2s. Like who is the responsibility to kind of like dictate that, like creating those standards? Like I'm just trying to ask a question that I would love the answer to, right? Because first I would like to have like different layer 2 diversity, both in ZK and optimistic, but also like the who is creating, whose role creating those rules too.
In which layer, though? Like, standardization in which layer? Like,
Could be standardization in developer tooling. There are not. I mean, if a C++ developer want to go to Stylus, he can go. But if I'm a Rust developer, so I need to go with the Cairo plugins for being EVM. I mean, it's a big pain. Also, like, who's responsible to create those kind of like tooling for developers that are really like kind of like having them, like, they're not kind of like siloed completely, right? Because just first for the tooling, but then the other question is also like, who is ensuring this diversity around layer 2? Because maybe, in 1 year, right now the TVL is not symmetric, right? We see that, but it's not just about TVL, it's also about other kind of metrics.
Yeah, so first of all, I think rollups are diverse enough today, in my opinion. We have enough generic purpose layer 2s already. In one of my earlier panels, people were complaining that we don't want to see another generic purpose rollup coming out. We had a bunch, and a lot of them don't really have many users. So I think the real problem with different rollups is that they're not they're not able to attract enough developers and enough applications to build on their own rollup, and then we see based maybe Arbitrum and Blast to be clearly the leaders in this front. They have more builders. They have their own ways to attract builders, but other layer 2s are kind of struggling to get more builders. At the same time, you have other builders actually deciding to build their own app rollup. So app rollup is kind of threatening the generic rollup or generic purpose layer 2s in a way. And then when it comes to standardization for developer tool, I feel like Rust providers are kind of servicing as a standardization player. We're automating the process for builders to build app rollups across different stacks. They can freely choose whether they want to build an OP stack rollup or an Orbit chain or maybe a Scroll stack or a ZK stack rollup easily with support of EigenDA, Celestia. It's like Lego pieces. We, in the backend, actually automated the whole process. We have a fully automated one-click platform that allows you to spin up a rollup within minutes. So we're kind of doing the heavy lifting where we debug for every single stack and kind of connect the dots to help them easily work. Actually, one thing to add is that when EigenDA launched their first testnet, they use OP-Stacks Docker. So it's kind of it's intended for standardization. They want to make sure when later chains want to launch Orbit chain or other chains, they can use the same Docker. So when EigenDA designed it, they already have standardization in mind, and we're kind of also supporting to make sure all the app rollups are set up in similar way with as much repetitive codes reused enough that you don't have to reinvent the wheels. However, when it comes to the generic purpose L2s, they all want to build their own empire, so it's a little bit harder to standardize, I have to say. You can only standardize from a wallet perspective or RPC provider quick node perspective, but it would be very hard to standardize everything.
Yeah, I'm actually very against like kind of a proactive human-enforced standardization because standardization often comes with like a lot of overhead, and not only on the technical side, but also on just like the entire ecosystem, power dynamics, who will be in charge of the standard. Let's imagine there is a standardization committee, like somewhere. This happened in internet. This happened to kind of a networking industry in early 20s. So basically, in the end, Cisco was calling the shot in networking industry to define what are the standards for many of the entire networking industry, networking devices, networking protocols. So that was kind of unfortunate. But we do see standardization in our industry already. So like if you go back to like 2017, 2016 when Ethereum initially came out, if you look at all those kind of competing blockchain projects back then, everyone is claiming that I'm going to build a different blockchain with a full stack, completely different, stack, like from the consensus level to the VM. Every, blockchain project back then was doing that. But, very quickly, all of these kind of competing projects start to finally, merge and aggregate into the entire EVM-based standard. So like, now we kind of naturally have VM standardization through free competition of the market, which I think is pretty powerful. And I think this should be how the kind of industry is going forward in the next few years in the foreseeable future, I would say. So if you look at, for example, cross-chain space, right? So cross-chain space, experienced a bunch of like standardization efforts. All the major ones failed. But like there was one small standardization effort that is involved Uniswap governance. So back then, when Uniswap wants to do cross-chain governance, they called out to all the different cross-chain protocols to say, hey, what's your proposal? But then finally, what happened is that everyone wants to kind of say, okay, how about we just standardization a way that can have the exact same interface to all the bridges. So if there is something in the future that happened down the road, you can swap out one bridge solution to another. So that very, very tiny, small effort of standardization that is driven by a customer took about like 6 months to actually start to kind of form some sort of like a higher level standardization effort. So the standardization covers a lot of kind of overhead and effort, but I do think free market competition can actually give birth to de facto standard. When we actually kind of have the developers to try out and use different solutions and form communities.
Yeah, we are getting to your question, guys. I just want to play a little bit the devil advocate here. First, do you think standardization is good? Raise your hand if yes. Okay. So I'm just saying that I think there is a mix, right? First, we need to speak always kind of the same language, kind of like okay. And I think, but standardization around technical standardization, I think is another way. But maybe the question to you, Lukas, because you're not answering enough question. But it's like. Obviously, like you guys have been working on smart accounts even before 437, we're coming from EF. Like, do you think we were here at this point today with innovation from infrastructure and from ecosystem support if there was no, let's say, kind of like EF entity pushing that, or you think like where would we right now?
I do think that standards, especially ERCs and EIPs, have a healthy forcing function and kind of getting momentum behind an idea, which definitely happened with 4337. Like a similar example is the Safe Smart account is modular, so you can add guards, modules. It's like additional logic to the account, and it has been this way for like 5 years. And like some people have been creating some things with that, like you can have like a snapshot space that controls the safe and like cool stuff like this, but like it never really took off. And only since there's like the standard ERC 7579, which is like essentially what Safe already had, but like as a standard and like a little bit different nomenclature and a little bit more unopinionated, that it actually sparked this interest of developers really creating modules for smart accounts. And it also is because then you're not forced to choose an ecosystem. And that's usually where you want to build something that's like long-term sustainable. It should work with not just with Safe, but with Alchemy smart account, with future MetaMask smart account, like any out of the box, and that's where standardization is just healthy, taking out risks for people because they don't have to commit to one ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean 7702 will never be discussed if there were no kind of like 437 kind of like roadmap and debates, right? I think you need to kind of be a healthy trade-off, right? Because at the end you want to also have different players competing on specific road to decentralization, like these kind of specific things. But at the end it's not just a competition around product. I think it's also like an healthy like ecosystem support that you want to provide, right? Like we are, I mean, I'm doing DevRel for a long time, but in the same time, it's like ecosystem support is key. That's why people are going in some specific ecosystem. And I think also around different like rollups, like ecosystem support matter more, and that's why people are choosing to deploy there or even like to build a further feature on that. Any question, guys? I hope no one is still sleeping. Don't be shy.
I have an interesting theory about standardization, because we all know big money comes before standard or monopoly. So I'm asking about which project has the biggest opportunity to do like 1000x in the next bull run cycle.
No answer. Everybody's shy.
I mean, I'm generally bullish on credibly neutral, composable open source software. So anything that fits into that bucket. But I don't know where actually your question was hitting towards.
What I'm saying is about this, maybe the last time we can have actually a 1000x total before everything was controlled by a single protocol, single entity. So this is maybe, we're all talking about the standardization, but when everything goes to standard, that usually means a big one company controls all. All the losers have no money. But this is the time, no big players. So we usually have good time to find the next 1000x tokens. So I'm quite curious about which kind of project has the potential. What's the crazy features and drive token or the projects to do like 1000x?
Maybe I can rephrase a little bit the question about like project-wise, but mostly like use case-wise, right? Yeah. Like for example, I'm super interested to see more attestation and on-chain proofs, like use case. I know like user adoption is definitely like usability right now on proofs is super difficult, but that's one use case I would like to see more.
Yeah, I think the profitability figure would affect the answer. So do you want to change the 1000x to 10x?
I want to change my question to what kind of project could become the true one protocol that can truly help the developer to do whatever they want. Usually when this kind of product comes out, it usually means this is the one, this is the product. This is the product that kills all the competitors. And this product usually will be the final one, and the rest one is over. And the only one left will do all the money.
But I think we're speaking about a little bit also like liquidity diversification. I think also like a lot of use case will be driven by specific like rollups. I don't think we will see like specific like let's say deployment be done. I see gaming going to specific layer 2s. I see attestation going to specific layer 2s, right? I don't know what you think. I don't think there is first a winner takes it all is the same around different use case. So
yeah, I agree. I don't think we'll see one take everything because right now that's not happening. And the second reason is because from a developer point of view, you're trying to go out to as many markets as you can. So in most cases, I think everyone will try to deploy in different ecosystems. And that's happening today. The problem is also hard, and we need better tooling to make that happen. For example, for cross-chain governance, as the example that with Uniswap, or to facilitate the UX or moving the assets, right? But I think what will happen is by moving things off-chain, part of the discussion around the tech stack, who will win, and if there will be a monopoly or not, I think things will look like more like the normal internet or Web 2, because in the end, if you move things off-chain, things will look more like a normal server or a normal tech stack that we have seen in the past. So there will be less on-chain interaction directly with the solution. It will look more like normal open source software, in my opinion.
Yeah, I want to add that when this industry first started, there were very few players in the industry, and that's why it was relatively easier to become a dominant force, such as MetaMask when MetaMask first started, there were like 3 wallets. And I started my crypto journey with MetaMask. So it's kind of drastic in a way that you want to stick with it because that's how you started crypto. You started with ETH, and it's all amazing experience, even though it was a little bit hard. But then over time, you see Rabbit Wallet, you see like Calpla, like you see so many different, and with like Solana ecosystem, you have Phantom, right? It's becoming almost impossible to monopolize your vertical with the size of the industry and with the geographic landscape. However, if you're looking for alpha, if you're looking for the next opportunity, I would say given the current stage of this industry, I do feel like you see a lot more businesses that focus on profitability rather than tokenomics and user growth. In the past, it's easy for a project to just launch a token without a business model, without profitability, and they can make money off the token. But now the token market itself is not even doing great. And a lot of projects actually found their own way to make money just by having a good business model. For instance, there were a lot of swaps making money off fees. I'm not talking about Uniswap. I'm talking about second-tier, third-tier swaps that you might not even heard about. They are very profitable, and you see Bridges and a lot of businesses making millions of dollars every year, and you have Catalan and a lot of different businesses, right? So I think it would be very hard for token holders to make 1,000x or even 10x moving forward, but for real businesses, they might be able to have high profitability moving forward without rewarding the token holders.
Cool. Any other question? Any last question? There you are, here.
So with account abstraction coming into the picture, every application creates its own smart wallet for the user. The problem is now the assets of the user has been fragmented in multiple different applications. Is there any way that you suggest, okay, hey, this is the path forward where in a way that a user has like one access or one way to view all the assets he has across multiple different applications which are deployed through safes in different applications, the fragmentation issue.
Yeah, I mean, generally the question of portability around smart contract wallets is an interesting one because like EOAs is super portable, and that's the amazing thing. Like you have like your assets on a wallet, you plug them into an app, you do something there, you get new tokens, you plug them into another app, like you port your account wherever you go, and that's something that to some extent goes missing with smart contract wallets, lacking if there's a lack of standardization around it. And I think especially with embedded wallets, where I do see the risk that you have like app-specific accounts, which is going to be like a UX nightmare for people, where like I personally appreciate having like this one account which is my single place where I have my assets, and I don't want to have like my Polymarket account and then I have my Lens account, and like everyone have like fragmented assets. So you need to have some way to aggregate this even with embedded wallets. And like there's a lot of teams. Also, Brahma is doing interesting things around sub-accounts, where like if you have like one like master account that controls sub-accounts that can be app specifics, so you can bridge these two worlds to some extent. But I think it's something that's generally not yet figured out how this evolves.
Got it.
Or what was the question?
Oh, yeah. I was like, hey, was there some way to go about all these things? Is something I wanted to know. But because you mentioned it's not figured out yet how to go forward in this.
Yep.
I think we have one question here.
I'm not sure if it's a question, more of just trying to get you guys' opinion. I think when it comes to standardization, one of the most obvious places we need it is through wallets. From a developer's perspective, it seems that I work for MetaMask. I'm not gonna. I'm a DevRel for MetaMask, but there's a lot of things that MetaMask is doing to make it very easy to work with and interact with the wallet that I don't see a lot of other wallets doing. and it seems like that a lot of builders want to be able to connect to as many wallets as possible, and I think that this is kind of it's not a problem. It'd be great if anyone can connect to any dApp with any wallet that they want to, but it seems like there needs to be a lot of underlying standards that these wallets all build on, and how do we get there? I know that's a very tough question, but what do you guys think about the current state of wallet standardization? Where does it need to go, et cetera?
I mean, I definitely think that standardization in wallets works better than standardization in L2s for now. Like there's like 1271, there's like the batch call ERC, like there's a bunch of ERCs that are also like one around session keys. Like wallets work quite closely together nowadays, whereas L2s are more towards like differentiating and kind of not building on the same, or kind of not looking the same, but like in the end, an app should not care what wallet is connected to the app. Should just have know like these are the capabilities that my app needs, and the wallet should be able to provide that.
Yeah, I think like in terms of a wallet standardization, the MetaMask, from our experience, right? So like we also have a kind of a cross-chain project. So from our experience, MetaMask's like entire API is the de facto standard because everyone tries to conform to that. Now, the challenging thing here is actually when we actually come to chain abstraction and multi-chain kind of extension process, that becomes super hard because now everyone in that space there isn't any kind of a de facto standard, and it's actually fundamentally hard because it's easy for a wallet to display to a user you have this and that asset in different chains, but how do you actually interact with like a application? Let's say if you want to say, okay, ideally the dream world is that you have like Uniswap and you try to get some like USDC on Arbitrum, but you happen to have some Ethereum on Optimism, right? So ideal case is that somehow the MetaMask will be able to tell Uniswap, and Uniswap will be able to talk to MetaMask and say, hey, this user actually have have Ethereum on Optimism, and therefore, you should be able to kind of do this thing for user with intent protocol with cross-chain swaps to actually kind of do the swap all in one step. But that actually, the major gap there I see is that how do you define this kind of a multi-chain and chain abstraction standard with the application, where the application can accept that and can also integrate with like third-party underlying players such as cross-chain aggregators and cross-chain kind of bridges. That's a part, I think there's a kind of a big question mark there, and I really want to find an answer for that.
I would say whatever MetaMask will integrate will become the standard in chain abstraction.
Yeah, but like you need to literally convince every kind of a application to actually conform to that standard and also conform to the auxiliary infrastructure, not only just the wallet, but also things like cross-chain bridges and the cross-chain intent protocols and all that stuff to conform to that. So which is going to be hard, and it's going to be a lot more messier than probably many people think. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add that it's actually harder to get consent from Optimism and Arbitrum because they will not agree to each other. or Polygon, right? You need to get endorsement from each individual roll-up stack. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, I think also we need to have some kind of like open stack similar to snaps for rollups. I think that would be super interesting to have, because right now if I'm a developer, I want to build a feature that is extending the functionality or enabling like a developer tooling specific to Stylus. This is something I cannot go and do the same easily for I don't know, like for Linea or something, right? So it's very customizable. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, last question. Really last question, and then we call it a night.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask about one main thing, seeing as that a lot of you guys work on wallet software or work on software that sort of interoperates with wallet software. How much effort have you guys actually put into sort of developing standardization of wallets in Web 2? There's been so many different sort of monetization or web payments proposals through the IETF task force ever since 2018. Many startups, in fact, also. There was Coil HQ by Interledger. They work directly with Google, Mozilla, and also Apple Safari browser to sort of create a smooth kind of one-click payment flow that works with WebAuthn and a lot of other existing web standards that we still got today. I heard mentions about proposals being sort of like standardization attempts being done in the Web3 space, but if it's going to come to adopting Web3 into the Web2 space, shouldn't you guys be focused more on RFCs through the IETF, through existing Web2 sort of standardization bodies?
Personal, for Safe, we haven't done this because it feels already enough work to try to coordinate within the Web3 ecosystem around standards, and like then trying to push for like how passkeys should be standardized against Google feels like an uphill battle at this point. But I do see that this is something that becomes increasingly important as also the space is growing. That like we engage with like a W3 Foundation and like these kind of bodies to standardize more. We not always have to reinvent the wheel, and like a lot of problems that we face are general technology problems, distributed database problems or whatever, and we can learn from that and engage with that.
I also want to say, check it out in the Snap marketplace. There are like a full category called like accounts, and they're basically like different snaps, just making the kind of like life easier for specific target users, like passkeys, logins, or like delegation accounts. And I think that's something like is super interesting to see. And I think also Web2 players will start also to build features on top of that. And I think on the long term, we will see more users have customized wallet, setup wallet, right? You will see a DeFi heavy users, you will see an NFT heavy users with customized wallet with specific features, right?
Right, which is exactly why I wonder, like, why not directly sort of... So the reason I mentioned Coil HQ and the web monetization API that a bunch of browsers were trying to integrate is because Coil HQ actually got dissolved under Interledger. They tried to develop the web monetization standard with these large standard bodies for roughly 5 years. They had tens of millions of dollars in funding. And it's really because there was no other Web3 companies that were looking to work with them in standardizing it. So the API was too broad, too vague. Nobody was really willing to implement it except the browser vendors end, which is actually a big deal. If you can all of a sudden set up a crypto wallet and transact with a crypto wallet in the browser in one click, we sort of like achieved being a lot more adoption in the Web2 space. But which is why I'm just like, I want to hear your guys' thoughts about it. Like we hear a lot about trying to solve problems through like Ethereum proposals, but are we really putting that enough effort into actually having standards go through in the Web2 space or not?
Yeah, I think you mentioned something that is very important there. I'm very familiar with the IETF standardization process because like we actually kind of, in my previous life, we actually did a bunch of things like that. So I think in general, our industry is not at that point to do this type of IETF standardization because IETF standardization in general moves in the speed of years. Like if not, you mentioned 5 years, like, that's one of the faster ones, I would say. Like, for IETF standardization. In the early 2000s, they are much faster than they are now. But like, IETF in general is like very hard to work with as kind of a standardization body and a process in general. So I would say like, if we need to take like 3 years to standardize something, while the entire adoption may sway the standardization in an entirely different direction, then the overhead of doing that now is just not worth it. So, that's kind of my take on this.
Oh. Yeah, I would add that also from a team perspective, if you need to engage with an institution that moves slower, also you're competing in a market that is really tough. So I think it's also in terms of a priority for a team, it's a trade-off. Do I put effort and time in actually trying to engage with them if they are slow, or do I try to get into a market and get a big share of it? I think that's why, and the reason is because we're still early.
two more standards that I
Right.
also want to just mention very quickly. That makes me wonder why there isn't the web monetization standard today. We already have ActivityPub, Mastodon, Quick protocol as well, already being standardized in a matter of a year or two. It was through efforts, the draft proposal was written in 2 months, which is, again, why I want to iterate, like, are we really spending the right efforts? Even, like, yes, we need to appease IETF body, but I think that's just a small part of the problem.
I think we should definitely invite you for Builder Night Bangkok. That would be cool. Okay, sounds good. Did you guys learn something new today? Yeah? Okay, cool. Awesome, awesome. So thank you so much for your time, for staying until late. Thanks so much for your panelists. And yeah, big round of applause to everyone.